Right, so I am excited to share the Strong Interest Inventory today. And the Strong Interest Inventory is a part of the Myers Briggs family of personality assessments. You've probably heard of Myers Briggs or MBTI. And there are a lot of personality assessments out there. You may have done DISC or Strengths Finders, and maybe you've done Myers-Briggs. They all have a different purpose and can all be useful as you're thinking about your value and you bring to a potential employer, to a position, when you talk about your personal brand. But the Strong Interest Inventory is actually the only personality assessment that's been deemed valid and reliable to link occupation with personality. So I'm going to dive in and show you what a sample of this looks like. If it's something that you would like to try, you can do that. I'll show you. Hang on just a second. I'm going to show you what it covers, and I will talk about a special offer that I have for people inside of the group and people that are following me on Deepened Talent Strategies on the company page. So the Strong Interest Assessment is great for somebody who finds themselves at a crossroads in their career, where maybe what they've done in the past isn't what they see themselves doing in the future. I've had a couple of clients this summer whose positions were eliminated after almost 30 years, and they've thought, I don't know if I want to keep doing that. That's a long time. It's a lifetime. Maybe there's something else out there for me, but where do I start? And this can be an effective resource for that of what are some occupations I may have never considered that would align with my interests. And another thing we talk about when we do the debrief of this tool is that sometimes you can find fulfillment in your interest and your hobbies, and it doesn't always have to be through your job. While you want that to be rewarding and motivating, it isn't where we have to find all of our life's fulfillment. And you may know that, but still sometimes it clouds our decision making when we think about potential career paths. It's also an effective tool for young people. Anybody over 14 can take the Strong assessment. So if you have somebody who's in high school or college and they're just not sure what they want to do in terms of a college major, or if a four-year degree is even right for them, this can be a helpful tool for them as well. There are 4 different scales of the Strong, and I'm going to show you kind of what those are at a high level. And I'm also going to show you what the college report looks like. It has a little bit more information if it is someone who's a little bit younger taking this assessment. So there are 6 general themes that people tend to fall into: artistic, social, enterprising, conventional, investigative, and realistic. And we know that there really isn't anybody who's just one thing. We all are a combination of all of these things, but there's a very high correlation to the things that you tend to like to do and are good at with the themes of the assessment. And so it will give you your highest themes, which then later lead into different occupations, and I'll show you in a moment. It will give you a score of your each of the 6 themes compared to the general population of the entire universe of people that have taken the Strong over 80 years. And then it tells you how you score to people of your gender, because even in 2020, men and women tend to take this differently, which I find surprising, but there are differences. So it will say for this sample person who has artistic at a score of 66 or 70 out of 75, it's very high for women and very high in social. And so even though enterprising is high, it's pretty far down there. And so this begins to be the foundation for the occupations that are recommended as we move down a little bit lower. The next scale are interests, and it lists the top 5 interest areas, as well as, this is one of my favorite components, the areas of least interest. So if someone finds themselves really dissatisfied in something they're doing, it's interesting to see if any of the areas of least interest are a part of their job. The areas of interests, as I started by saying, can be things that you find fulfillment and joy in any part of your life. So For this person, religion and spirituality, for example, is her number 2 interest area. It doesn't mean that she needs to work in a church or a temple or a mosque or work with people to get fulfillment in a position. But she might want to have a sense of belonging, to have a religious organization or a spiritual organization that she attends and where she can meet people who share similar interests and find fulfillment that way. Same with writing and mass communication. I did this with a woman whose number 1 interest was writing and mass communication, and she could not imagine herself in a career as a career doing that full time. But as we started talking, she shared with me that she actually co-authored a book, coincidentally on religion and spirituality. But she wrote a chapter for a friend, and it was a passion project, so she really enjoyed it. She just doesn't want to do it for a living as a career. So the interest areas are interesting for you to think about in terms of how can you find those areas of fulfillment in all aspects of your life. Each of the interests are then broken down by the 6 general themes that I shared before. So we do a deep dive when we go through the assessment, and we go into all these different interest areas a little bit further. And then we get into occupation. So the strong will say that we'll give you your top 10 occupations, and then your top 5 areas of dissimilar interest. And what this is comparing it to are people who have taken the strong, who have said that they really like their job. This tool is saying, or this report is saying, you answered the strong similarly or dissimilarly to other people who answered similar to you and like what they do for a living. So this sample person has answered the questions very similar to public relations directors who really enjoy what they do. It doesn't say you need to stop what you're doing, go back to school and become a public relations director, but we start to dig into what is it that they do. For being a PR director, it's messaging, it's building relationships, it's sometimes herding cats. And what are the aspects of that job that you could then find work that's similar, or take courses and take training and move into that field? So nothing in this assessment tells you what you have to do, or that you have to go back to school, or you have to change careers, but it highlights some things that you may never have thought of, and you may never have grouped them similar. Would you ever have thought that somebody who's a PR director would also be potentially interested in being a school counselor or a paralegal or an arts and entertainment manager? So the variety is interesting. And if you take the strong and you get this report, these are actually hyperlinks that link you out to a system where you can actually do a lot of research on each of these occupations if you wanted to do a little bit more. And so those are the top 10, but it actually ranks hundreds of them for you and puts them into different categories, again, by the 6 themes. So you'll see those throughout, and ranks them like paralegal was incredibly high here, and then down to actuary, which is really small. And some of them, sometimes I see negative numbers, which is a good sign that that's probably not a good career path for you. But you can dive into all of these potential occupations. And then the next scale are the personal style scale. Oftentimes, when I talk to people who don't feel like their current work is satisfying, or their past environment didn't bring out the best in them, or they didn't enjoy it for some reason, it often has something to do with the work style. So this part of the assessment will tell you that you probably, for this individual, enjoy working with people. This is really far to the right on the spectrum. So if you were to put this woman into a role where she sat in a room and she didn't get to interact with people, and she mostly was just working with data or ideas all day, she would probably be very dissatisfied. And sometimes it's just seeing it on paper that helps someone realize, yes, that's why I did not enjoy that position, or maybe why you're attracted to certain kinds of work environments. It also talks about your learning environment. If you had to on the job training or ongoing education, do you prefer to learn through books and lecture? Or do you want more short-term training, hands-on training? And so there's the learning environment is important. Leadership style, do you want to lead by example and lead from an individual contributor perspective, or do you really like taking charge and managing other people? If you have been on a management track to this point in your career, but the strong comes back and says you're really not comfortable taking charge of people, it also helps us identify maybe where you had some struggles in past positions, or you didn't feel like just something was clicking, and it could be the leadership style. And then risk taking, whether someone dislikes risks or takes them. And these can be the types of risks from investing to job changes to bungee jumping. It can be physical risks, financial risks, career risks, all of the above. And then team orientation is also helpful when you think about what kinds of work you want to do and where you might want to do it. Do you prefer working collaboratively with a team, or do you prefer working more individually? And that doesn't mean you can't work well with a team, but some people get really frustrated if they feel like their work product is dependent on other people at the end of the day. And so where do you fall on that spectrum? And that's helpful to know as well. And then there's a summary, which will break down the high points of those four different assessments that I talked about. And then there's some helpful information about using this information. What do you do next? What kind of research would you do after this? Where can you find more information about different careers? And all of that's included in the report. And then I did want to show the college portion for someone who would take this in high school or college will also say what are some potential college majors for each of the general themes and the general occupations. So this is helpful if someone has a pretty good idea of the types of things they want to do, but they don't actually know what that might be called at the university level, or what different majors might exist. And then there are, I love this. This is my favorite aspect of the college report. Of different career occupations, what are some campus activities and college classes and internships and job settings may you want to try so that you can get exposure to that? So writing and mass communication was very high for this individual. So perhaps joining a campus radio or TV or student publication, foreign language club, an internship in an ad agency or at a newspaper, and different college courses that might be interesting. Because as many of us know, but I think a lot of young people don't know, is that you can take classes outside of your major or before you've declared a major to get exposure and to learn different what different things entail. I changed my major 4 times in college because honestly, I didn't know that I could take a marketing class, for example, if I were an accounting major, and or that I could take a communication class just to see what it was about. So this also helps educate some of those young people of the things that they just don't know. So I really like that aspect of the college report as well. So that's an overview of the strong assessment, the types of things that it covers. Again, it's really helpful for people who find themselves at a crossroads. It doesn't have to mean that you completely change direction, that you take 6 years and go back to medical school or anything dramatic like that. What we do is after you take the assessment, we do an hour-long debrief where we go through the information, talk about what you agree with, what you don't agree with, what surprises you, and where can you go from here? How can you take the interest that you have in the different occupations that it recommends, and how can you find the aspects of that in a job that is realistic for you with your knowledge and experience and education, your geographic area, and any of the things that are your current parameters that are defining your job search and your career goals right now. So thank you. Again, let me know what questions you have. Feel free to put things in the comments, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day. Bye.